Hi everyone. I am Coach Colette and I'm here with my really good friend Biddy.
Hey everyone, I'm so excited to be here today.
Yeah, and so we are going to have a conversation with you about pause and why it's really important to pause. And this is part of our Pause Reset Lead program that we are excited to share with you. So, how are you doing, Biddy?
I'm doing super and I'm so excited because Colette, first, I love working with you, and two, to be able to bring some of these ideas which are so timely. They're not necessarily only meant for these times, but right now more than ever, what is that one thing that we all feel that we're having a hard time getting control over? Time, right? So today's conversation is all about being able to step back and pause and really give yourself that gift of time so that hopefully we can get some deeper understanding. So I would like to give it away to Colette to get us started on that journey.
Great. So I wanted to set the context, and not that anyone really needs the context for where we are, but I was thinking about this morning and I had a chuckle because I had this thought about Golden Girl. So yeah, I'm dating myself. And I thought I wanted to set the context Sophia Petrillo style. So picture it, United States 2020. You're all leading your lives. You think things are going great. It's your standard busy hustle, but you are having fun, you're socializing, you're interacting with people, you're hugging people, you are going out to dinner, you are doing all of these things in person. And then all of a sudden, bam, COVID hits and your life changes immediately overnight, it seemed like, right? So that's I don't know, I probably still need to work on my Sophia Petrillo, but I was like, I thought that might be a fun way to sort
Yes,
of kick this off
you're
today.
great.
Yeah, because it's this concept of, now your gym, your yoga studio is closed. Either you're working really long hours from home, or perhaps you've been impacted by a business slowdown, so you're working less. And then if you are a parent or a mom or a dad like Vidi, now you are all of the teacher, the cook, the babysitter, the homework reader, and whatever career you're doing all at once. Did I miss any ands, Vidi? Is there anything else that you're doing?
That's enough.
So, and I'm saying it in a lighthearted way, but I definitely don't want to minimize what we're all going through in all of this situation, but just wanting to give you that context, because I want to ask first for you to think about, how are you dealing with all of this, right? Like giving yourself that time. As Vidi was saying, we're going to be talking a lot about pause, but like giving yourself this time just to say, how are you dealing with this? So Vidi, how are you dealing with this?
Well, it's definitely a task, but what helps tremendously in this situation, and I'm moving towards a little bit of positivity here, because, like you said, we're trying to be lighthearted, but it's hard, and there are some good days and some bad days. But what has tremendously helped me is to really take some predictability and put it back into the system, which was completely thrown out of, so is there something I can do that reminds me, that makes me feel like a certain ritual? Is it waking up at a certain time of the day? Is it especially thinking about what stuff that matters to me, and then bringing that back in some way, a little way, and sprinkle them throughout the day in between the craziness? And that sort of has helped me a lot.
Mhm. And then the second question that I want to share with you and also with everyone is, have you, over these weeks and now months,
Yeah.
started to be able to uncover the positive aspects of this? Like, what has unexpectedly potentially gone well? So I don't know if you have anything along those lines, Vidi.
Well, as a parent, I would say, and it's a part and parcel, it's two sides of the coins. The one side is, if I can, for once, not have to homeschool, I'll take it, right? But the positive side of that is all of a sudden I'm aware of, you know, how many times we complain about not having awareness of what's going on in school. The school has come home for you. You're completely aware of what is really happening in their lives and how do they learn, and things that are being uncovered about my child's personality that I wasn't even aware about. So, yeah, I mean, there are certain blessings in disguise, if you will, in this
Right.
situation.
Yeah, one of my favorite leaders talks about like blessings wrapped in, or gifts wrapped in sandpaper, right? Like
Yes.
that's the thing. And I ask those questions of you and of everyone that's watching, just to plant the seeds. I'm sort of planting the seeds a little bit for what we're going to be talking in our next session, which is about reset, and that's all about reframing. But really just these opportunities to go within and reflect are really important. And within the context of when we are dealing with traumatic experiences, we know that we all sometimes have one of three responses. We either have a fight, a flight, or freeze. And so first of all, it's always helpful for you to understand for yourself where you are in that spectrum. Like when something happens, are you the person that fights back? Are you the person who kind of like flight, wants to run away, or are you the person that freezes? And it can be helpful to know that. Like I know for me, in many situations, I'm a freeze. Like something will happen and I have to go into like process mode. But in that
Mhm.
process mode, I'm kind of like stuck where I am. How about you, Vinny?
Um, it's funny because people call me a bull. Um, you know, when I see something that I can't understand, I go like that into the situation. And sometimes I suffer because of that, because I jump in. But my situation usually is to take head on something that's coming my way. And it's interesting, you know, when you share that analogy around fight or flight, because you know, the COVID situation has been nothing less than a sudden trigger, which brings people into survivability mode, right? Which got us thinking, which not thinking, acting, right? It could be acting to freeze and acting to fight, or you know, acting to flight from that, you know, lock up and I don't want to do anything, you know, with this situation. But yeah, I mean, that's been sort of the reality for most of us. That's been the reality in my life, back and forth, and I'm now bringing into dragging myself into, and I bet you are, and many others are. And how do I get ahead of this a little bit?
Right. So yeah, so again, as coaches and consultants, both Vidya and I, we tend to ask a lot of questions because it's the questions that get you thinking and get you reflecting. And so as Vidya was saying, this concept of being in survival mode, of being either in fight, flight, or freeze, it can be really challenging to take action, right? You know, it's our amygdala is activated. We're, you know, it's the reptilian side of our brain. We're not in the, you know, process, planning, problem solving, critical thinking, right? We're not in that part of our brains. So one of the things that we are very keen on is helping you around this aspect of pause, because pause is one tool, one technique, one thing that you can do to help yourself get regrounded, to help yourself get recentered, to come out of that survival panic mode and be able to move into more action, more thought, and more choice. Because I think the other thing is, I know a lot of us feel during the situation like that we're just losing choice, you know,
Mhm.
like not being able to go out as often as you might like to, or not going to see other people, or all of the things that we can't do, right? So what we're suggesting is that when you do take the time to pause, that it can help you to see the choices and to see the opportunities more clearly in front of you. So that's why pause is the first step in Pause, Reset, Lead. And so today what we thought we would do is actually go into a brief activity that Vidya is going to lead us through that will show you how you can actually do this, right? You know, yes, we're coaches and consultants and we love theory and I love being in my head all the time. But in reality, we need to be able to find ways to do and to take action. So Vidya, I would love to participate in the activity that you have for us
Are
today.
you ready? Yes.
I am
Let's do it,
ready.
Colette. And I love it that you're participating in the activity with everybody else. And I'll be doing a little bit writing too for myself because as Colette, you said that as someone once said, it's only in stillness can we hear, right? It is, you know, to make it a little bit more practical, to make it a little bit more real for us, it's extremely hard for us to consistently be pushed around by the realities of the day without being able to have a little minute to even think for ourselves. And it's not so much me, it's more about learning, being able to understand what are the different areas of my life that I need. So we call this a little pause to learn canvas. And we'll do this canvas. By the way, this canvas is also available and we'll text you or we'll provide you the link to our site where it's absolutely available to you for free, because what we recommend is that people do it often. People do it at a minimum 3 to 6 months once for your family, for your relationships, for your work. And it's extremely important tool. Colette and I tend to do a lot of retrospectives in our own minds about what's working, what's not working, we discuss. And this tool really can be advantageous on that. So without ado, let's get started. One of the biggest questions the particular question that the Canvas asks you is what areas of lives are impacted by the current situation? I wouldn't call it COVID, let's just call it lockdown or social isolation, because that's sort of the result of COVID, right? Which is where we are in. So think in terms of possibly major areas if I was to help you. Financials, your career is one little area, right? Your business and your brand and your ability to reach is, you know, people who you provide value to is another area. Your health. And when I say health, I just don't mean physical, your emotional health, your mental health. If you're a spiritual person, your spiritual health. How are you able to align back and center back to what you care about in terms of all those areas of health? And is that an area that you see an impact in? The other area is relationships with your friends, your family, with your clients. Let's not leave them alone. With the people you serve, including your work people you tend to hire, or your team members. How are your relationships working through those areas, right? And those are just some examples. If there's a category that I haven't mentioned or that I have forgotten, feel free to think about that. And when I say, how has it impacted? Let's make it a little bit more concrete. Think in terms of if I was to rate it in my head on how my financials and my career, for example, are from 1 to 5, where are they today? And think in terms of the commentary. Write down if you need to. I think it's really 1 because unfortunately I've lost a couple of projects, right? Or my budgeting is out of the window because of this grocery delivery issue. I don't understand how it works, or I can't really, Colette, you mentioned earlier, yoga gyms are closed and I'm having a hard time figuring out what do I do now. This is becoming more of a chronic situation, and I can't go to my gym. Do I buy a machine? So I personally would rate myself on my physical health a little bit low, not in terms of feeling low, but the way I would like my physical health to be taken care of. That's the other aspect, right?
Okay. So what question are you asking of me?
I'm asking how has the lockdown or the situation impacted any wherever you want to rate, whichever condition,
Okay.
how is it impacted? And for you to think about how has it impacted, you can start by imagine a rating in your head to say, oh, okay, it's really 5. Relationships are great, and then the commentary is because I'm with my family, right? So it's
Okay.
impacted in a positive way, because to your point, not everything is impacted the most negative way.
Okay. All right. So I would say that for me, when I think of my health, it's interesting, like you were saying, my health, knock on wood, is still good. Although by solo quarantine solo quarantining and not getting outside, I'm missing out on physical activity. uh, i'm not
Mm.
I'm not as active, so I'm much more sedentary even than I was before. And living in New York City, would be able to, not taking the subway. So there are lots of different ways that I could have gotten exercise that I now am not, in
Right.
addition to if I was working out. So like no subway stairs, not as often stairs in my building. So if it's 1 to 5, that brings it down maybe to at least a 3, because
Mhm.
again, feeling well. And then emotionally, solo quarantining is impacting me because much as I love that we get to connect on Zoom all the time, not having the ability to be around people in person, or and not having that physical contact has definitely impacted me.
Thanks for sharing. And there could be more areas. Like I said, I brought up, your career and financing and budgeting, the issue of, you said, relationships, the issue of being able to build your business and a brand and reach. Some businesses are extremely physical dependent and footprint dependent, and they're having a hard time maybe having a hard time reaching their customer base in different ways. So the next question, Colette, that I'd like to ask you in some of those categories as you're reading yourself, think about a feeling that you would attach to that particular rating or the impact that you're seeing. And a feeling could be things like, I feel like I'm out of control, or I feel like I've slacked, or I feel like um, alone, that you talked about emotional, right? I feel like I don't have support. Whatever it could be, what is that feeling that you would possibly attach to that particular
Yeah.
impact that's
So
going
the feeling that comes to me is isolated. I
on?
often feel isolated and a little bit disconnected, again, because of beyond these screens, not having that contact. Particularly, I notice it more, I guess, at night, when I'm done, when I have actually, closed out and stopped working, and then it is, just me again. So yeah, I would say that
Right,
I have
right.
those moments.
I can totally imagine. I'm having the opposite problem. I was joking on another Zoom call today that we've built little studio apartments of our own, because we're getting to a point where we're like, can we just, not meet with each other all day? And it's a real feeling to have over socialization
Overload, yeah.
with certain people, with the
Mhm.
same people,
Mhm.
and in so many ways, because we have dependency, we have times of the day, and there's food dependency, there's learning dependency, and so on and so forth. And
Mhm.
then when I try to answer that question, I always want to try to answer the next question by thinking about what would I like to replace that feeling with.
Mm.
If I'm feeling isolated, what do I want to replace that feeling with?
So, okay, yeah. So that, I mean, I think, I don't want to say the obvious answer, but sort of the obvious answer is
Yeah,
connection, right? That sense
connection.
of
Yeah,
connection, intimacy, warmth,
yeah.
camaraderie.
There you go.
Yeah.
Um, and the reason it feels very obvious is because it feels like English grammar, bang opposite, right? All I have to do is to, think about the feeling opposite. But what is not that straightforward to me is when I think about the feeling about the impact, and then when I try to think about the feeling that's quite opposite, I have it easy until then. But then the next question is what makes it very challenging for me, which is if you were to pick one thing that's in your way today, that is that is in your way today to convert that feeling from that feeling, aside from the economic scenario, aside from the realities of the world, which is the lockdown, right?
Mm.
Which we, of course, can't control and change. So
Mm.
if you were to pick one thing that's in your way that you could control to possibly shift from that first feeling towards this future feeling self,
Mhm.
what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, what comes to mind is being proactive about reaching out to folks,
Mm-hmm.
and not to say that I always do that, but not waiting for someone to reach out to me, but for me to be proactive about connecting. And I think for me personally, also being okay with, I know you asked for one thing, but I'll give you two,
Yeah.
being okay with letting folks know that that's how I'm feeling, like being a little more vulnerable with, you know, the right people, or as Brene Brown, with the people that who have earned the right to hear your vulnerability, but being more vulnerable about that, that's what's going on for me, and sharing that, as opposed to kind of wanting to be like, I'm okay, I'm good, you know. I have the whole thing about the hashtag disrupt strong black woman, right? But like, because you know, you have that sense to feel like I've got this, I'm holding it down, but pushing that aside and being like, yeah, like sometimes I'm isolated and it doesn't feel good, and I want more connection.
And thanks for being so candid, because what I've noticed is with many of our clients and even with myself that personality plays that big role into turning feelings. What we don't realize many, many times is it's not always the same thing that's in your way. For somebody, it's that thing of being able to have that trust and, you know, share. For somebody like me who's an open book, my solution is a little bit different when it comes to something like isolation. Um, because I am an open book and I'm an extrovert, uh, and I don't like to eat alone. I don't like to have my coffee alone. I'm always this person who's looking for a buddy to have coffee with. So for me, it's been a big impact. But when I was feeling that isolation, my isolation is not so much from the family member problem, but friends and the outside support system problem. And I've solved that by booking on my calendar times for happy hours, times for international breakfast with my mom who's having dinner in India, with my sister who is having also a brunch in North Carolina. And we schedule that so that I can feel that I can replace that isolation feeling into feeling that I'm supportive, which is my big need. I want my support system around me. So yeah, so that's really the exercise. And it's amazing how when we go through the exercise through each of those areas and really thoughtfully take our time with no distractions to really think about those feelings and think about that one thing. You mentioned two things and it's fair enough, but the reason I always say one thing is because human beings have a very hard time. As much as we like to believe we are queens of multitasking, we're kings of multitasking, human brain cannot ever, especially when it comes to change and transformation, more work on more than one in a justifiable way. So I always say, look, go through that exercise, do that one thing, achieve that one thing, get it out of your way, turn that boulder into a little rock that you can go over, and then you can always go back to the canvas next week. The canvas is yours. And you can
Right.
always then judge your feelings and the assessment of the feelings. Some people on the earlier Zoom call I was having today were literally saying, if you called me 3 weeks ago, I would be a different person. People have been working towards a journey and people change. So we can change and we can bring. And Colette, you brought up reframing and resetting. This is the canvas that we use in our Pause Reset Lead program, along with a very thorough assessment tool, by the way, which is also available for free on our website, and we'll give you the link, to really bring you to a place where you feel comfortable thinking about reframing your life and resetting your life. So, so I really encourage, as one of the last closing comments on this tool and this exercise, is to please take this. If there's one thing we could give, and think about how you could use it, perhaps with your family members, perhaps with your business. And we'd love to hear back from you on how you were able to bring some insights and hopefully get ready for that reframing and reset.
That's great. Thank you, Biddy. And I think the thing to think about whenever you are doing these things is remember that when you ask yourself questions, the answers don't necessarily always come like that. And that if you are someone who does self-reflection and introspective often, you might get thoughts and ideas quickly. And if you don't, right, like it's something that you can just give yourself the time, right? Because I think, and I always say this whenever I'm doing training or coaching or working with clients, is that just the fact that you ask the question has already started you on your journey.
Yes.
Because your mind is already starting to process. And if I could say one other thing is not just answer from here, but answer from here. So allowing yourself that extra time to really pause.
Thank you. That's important.
Answer from your heart, not just from your head. And know that no one is judging you, no one is watching you, and it's all just for you. So, yeah.
Thanks, really appreciate it. I'm this type A sledgehammer person who's like, what do you mean feelings? And when I was building the tool out also, you remember you and I were discussing it and trying to build it out. And I was having a hard time even say, why am I asking people questions about feelings, right? But because I like to just shut that down and work on the goal. But what I realized exactly what I realized over the years was that if I don't follow, especially some of the best leaders in the world I've had a chance to talk to, interview, and learn from, those people would tell you the first thing is about the why, about the feels, about, people come to you because they're feeling that connection. So it's a huge opportunity for everyone, including us, to use this opportunity in this, not even a proverbial anymore, it's a real lockdown, to really say, can I take time to really go in here and think about the areas and try to reframe things. Having said that, we really want to welcome you to the system we've built, which takes you into all of these tools and further ahead into the reset, and then be able to then lead the vision and the reframed life that you would like to lead, so that you can really try to start having an intentional view towards your life, which is our goal from this program. The program launches in May, but you can absolutely reach out to us right now, anytime, if you want to have a conversation about it. But the beauty of this program, and Colette and I talked about this many times, we each in our own ways have been benefited tremendously by coaching, by support, and especially by peer groups, right? I cannot say enough about how the latent learning, the peer discussions, learning from each other about what works, what not works. Sometimes it's almost more valuable than me learning one way, right? One way conversation. So the program takes you through all of the tools and the coaching that you can get and the peer work that you would do together to set that goal that, look, in 6 weeks, I'm just not going to pause. I'm going to reframe. I'm going to set that vision, and I'm going to make a holistic plan to then launch myself forward. So we hope that you will see value in that. We hope that it resonates with you, and we hope you'll sign up.
Great. So stay tuned and keep your eyes peeled. We'll be doing another one of these sessions with you to talk about the next 2 steps, reset and lead. And until then, give yourself time to pause.
Well, have a amazing rest of the day, everybody, or whenever you watch it, and we'll see you soon again. Take care. Thanks, Colette.